They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but sometimes it feels like 120ths. Now we watched America retreat into isolation, leaving the global stage wide open. Now in episode 4, a new power rises in the Middle East. What if Iran, free from American interference, becomes a nuclear powerhouse? How does this change the world? Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's time warp into a world where Iran holds the key to power. The year is 1979. The setting, Iran. It's a time of turmoil. The people are restless, and the old order is crumbling. Enter Ayatollah Khomeini, a name that will echo through history. Backed by the masses, he challenges the Shah's iron-fisted rule, forcing the once mighty monarch into exile. It's a revolution that shakes the world, a clash between tradition and modernity, religion and secularism. And when the dust settles, it's clear the Shah's days are numbered. This isn't your average palace coup. This is a seismic shift in a geopolitical landscape, and the implications are The stage is set for a new era, but who will take center stage? Now let's fast forward to our own timeline. By the mid-1980s, Iran was a changed nation. Its Islamic revolution had ousted the US-backed Shah, but the country was isolated, its economy crippled by sanctions. Any thoughts of nuclear power seemed like a distant dream. But what if things had been different? What if Iran, bolstered by the support of a rising Soviet Union and China, had embarked on a nuclear journey unhindered by external pressures? Today, Iran sits on the precipice of nuclear power. To understand how Iran might wield this power, we must first dissect the nation itself. Iran is a complex mix of religious fervor, historical depth, and geopolitical ambition. Now let's talk about Iran's potential nuclear arsenal. If Iran had developed nuclear weapons, its arsenal would likely mirror its ballistic missile program, which includes a mix of short, medium, and long-range missiles. Iran's ballistic missile arsenal includes the Shahab series, which have ranges from a few hundred to over 2,000 kilometers. These missiles could deliver nuclear warheads if Iran had chosen to develop them. The number of warheads per missile is uncertain, but could range from one to multiple smaller warheads. Iran's nuclear strategy would hinge on deterrence. An attack on Iran, especially from Israel, could risk Iranian retaliation with nuclear weapons. This strategy assumes that Iran's leadership values its survival above all else. The goal would be to dissuade adversaries from initiating a war that could escalate to nuclear exchange. The impact of an Iranian nuclear arsenal on the Middle East would be profound. The region's volatile mix of conflicts and tensions could intensify. Countries like Saudi Arabia may feel compelled to seek their own nuclear capabilities, sparking an arms race. International organizations like the UN would face significant challenges in monitoring and controlling Iran's nuclear activities. The global balance of power would be redefined as a multipolar world emerges. Iran's nuclear prowess would align it more closely with Russia and China, creating a formidable Eurasian bloc. The US might find itself increasingly sidelined in Middle Eastern affairs, diminishing its global influence. And here's the wild card: Iran's internal dynamics. The nation's clerical elite might use nuclear power to consolidate control domestically, but this could also backfire, leading to internal instability or even conflict. Iran's nuclear journey in our timeline was fraught with controversy. The process has raised concerns about proliferation and prompted international scrutiny. Now imagine a world where Iran had developed nuclear weapons. The path would be smoother, driven by state support rather than resistance. Let's rewind to the 1970s. A young, ambitious nation emerges on the global stage, fueled by a desire for influence and power. We're talking about none other than China. In our timeline, China kept a low profile, focusing on economic growth and asserting its influence within regional organizations. But what if this young power player decided to take a different route? What if this China had gone big on military expansion in the 70s, shaping a vastly different global landscape by the 1980s? Fast forwarding to our own timeline, China today is a global powerhouse, flexing its muscles not only economically, but also militarily. They've modernized their armed forces, becoming the second largest defense spender in the world. And they're not shy about showcasing their prowess with advanced fighter jets like the J-20 and naval vessels like the Type 003 aircraft carrier. But what if this rise had happened even faster? Imagine a world where China's military expansion wasn't gradual, but explosive. If China had aggressively expanded its military in the 1970s, it could have reshaped the global balance of power much earlier. For starters, they might have challenged the US for dominance in Asia faster. Picture this: a showdown over Taiwan or the South China Sea. In our timeline, China's growing economic clout served as a deterrent. But in this alternate history, China's military strength could have tipped the scales, potentially altering Taiwan's status and sending shockwaves across the region. But China's ambitions wouldn't stop at its borders. They'd likely have sought to expand their sphere of influence, possibly backing North Korea's aggression in the 1950s, or meddling in conflicts in Southeast Asia. This could have led to a domino effect, dragging more nations into the crossfire and escalating tensions. The world we know might have seen a much earlier Cold War 2.0. China's military assertiveness could have triggered a global arms race, especially among Asian nations. Countries like India and Japan might have felt compelled to bolster their defenses, pouring resources into their militaries and competing with China's advancements. This arms race wouldn't be limited to Asia. Regional powers would likely have felt the need to keep up, potentially sparking conflicts or confrontations. As tensions rise, diplomacy takes center stage. But in a world where China flexes its military might, negotiations might take on a different tone. China's demands could become more aggressive, aiming for territorial concessions or favorable trade deals. Their bargaining chips would be their advanced weaponry and their willingness to use it, potentially intimidating smaller nations and reshaping political boundaries. And let's not forget the ripple effects on the global stage. A militarized China could have altered alliances. Nations that might have otherwise aligned themselves with the US could have opted for neutrality or even alignment with China, seeking protection under its military umbrella. This could have led to a realignment of global powers, reshaping alliances and diplomatic landscapes. As the world grapples with China's military expansion, the US might have found itself in a precarious position. No longer the sole superpower, it would have had to contend with a formidable rival on an equal footing. This could have diminished the US's global standing and forced it to reevaluate its foreign policy, perhaps pulling back from global commitments or seeking closer ties with its allies. And finally, let's talk about the economy. China's military expansion might have come at the expense of its economic growth, diverting resources away from infrastructure and industry. Alternatively, a larger military could have provided economic benefits, boosting industries like steel and weapons manufacturing. In either scenario, China's economic trajectory could have diverged significantly, impacting not only its own development but the global economy as well. In essence, a militarized China in the 1970s would have precipitated a cascade of events that could have dramatically reshaped the world. From an earlier Cold War to shifting alliances and a transformed global economy, the ramifications would have been far-reaching, leaving us in a vastly different world than the one we know. Now it's time for you to step into the arena. What do you think? Would a nuclear Iran have dominated the Middle East? How would China's military expansion have affected the world? Let your voice be heard in the comments. And while you're at it, hit that like button for more thought-provoking scenarios. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated. Together, we're shaping the future of this channel.